There's a silence that lingers in the Force, a silence that wraps itself around moments we never noticed, words never spoken, actions never taken. And in that quiet, Yoda sat, still as stone, watching it all crumble from within. We always imagined him as the wisest, the strongest, the one who would guide the Jedi through any storm. But what if the storm wasn't meant to be stopped? What if he saw the sky darken, heard the thunder coming, and let it come anyway? He wasn't blind, not to the Senate's corruption, not to Anakin's unraveling, not to the shadows slithering beneath the surface. He felt them, knew them, and still chose calm over chaos, patience over panic, stillness over salvation. The Jedi were dying long before Order 66. They'd traded vision for tradition, instinct for obedience, heart for dogma, and Yoda, the oldest among them, may have realized that nothing could be saved, not without first being destroyed. It's a thought that reshapes everything. That the fall of the Jedi wasn't an accident, but a necessary collapse. That Yoda, in his silence, wasn't weak, wasn't scared, but devastatingly deliberate, letting fate run its course like a river through a broken dam. In this video, we're going to explore a theory that changes the legacy of Yoda forever. A theory that suggests he knew the fall was coming, saw it, accepted it, and allowed it. Not out of fear, but out of faith in what would come after. There's always been something strange about Yoda's silence during the final days of the Republic. He meditated more than ever, spoke less than usual, and when the Force screamed in chaos, he simply listened. Not once do we see him try to change the outcome. The Clone Wars weren't just battles, they were tremors. Tremors in the Force that even lesser Jedi could sense. But Yoda felt the ripples before the storm ever arrived. Through dreams, through whispers, through moments where time itself felt broken, he saw glimpses of the darkness to come. We know this because of what we see on Moraband, where Yoda journeys into the ancient temples and confronts his own fears. He witnesses Jedi falling, friends betraying one another, Sidious rising from the shadows, and he doesn't stop it. Instead, he lets the knowledge sit with him, like a weight he chose not to lift. He tells the Council nothing, shares no warnings, offers no preparation beyond vague suggestions of caution. And maybe, just maybe, that wasn't ignorance. Maybe that was a choice rooted in something deeper than duty or fear. What if Yoda wasn't blind? What if he knew all along, not just that the Jedi would fall, but that they needed to fall? And what does it mean if their greatest master chose silence over salvation? You can feel the tension in every council meeting, and yet they do nothing. They sit in their ivory tower, obsessed with rules and protocols. As war rages across the galaxy, and the Sith move freely beneath their noses, Yoda is there for every conversation, every misguided decision, every missed opportunity to question the Republic's motives. And each time he allows it. No rebellion, no doubt. Just acceptance, even when they send children to die. He gives his quiet nod. And when Anakin, clearly unstable, clearly unraveling, comes to them in desperation, they push him aside, assign him to spy on Palpatine, and still, Yoda says nothing. He feels the cracks in the Force. He knows Anakin is slipping, but he offers no lifeline. They are told the dark side clouds everything, that the future is uncertain. But how much uncertainty is too convenient? How much of that is an excuse for not acting, for not questioning, for not standing up to the Senate's chokehold on their decisions? It's maddening, because Yoda wasn't a bystander. He was the pillar, the calm, the one they all looked to. And when the time came to lead, he let the current carry them straight into the fire. When Order 66 begins, you feel it, that sudden, sickening collapse. Jedi after Jedi, gunned down by those they trusted. And somewhere, Yoda stops, drops his cane, and clutches his chest, as if he knew it was coming. He doesn't look surprised. He doesn't scream. He doesn't even flinch when it happens. It's as if he's mourning something long expected, a grief that's been building in silence, waiting for the inevitable moment to arrive. And what's worse, he lets it unfold. He doesn't warn anyone, doesn't try to stop the clones, doesn't attempt to save the younglings. It's heartbreaking, because we believe in Yoda as a symbol of wisdom. Yet here, he's a symbol of surrender. He leaves behind centuries of Jedi history, allows the temple to burn, watches as Padawans are hunted like criminals. And still, he does not rise in fury or defiance, only acceptance, as though this loss was a wound that needed to bleed. There's a deep sadness in that choice, because maybe he believed resistance was futile. Maybe he thought fighting would only delay the pain. But seeing him retreat, after all that guidance, all that strength, it's a sorrow that lingers longer than the fall itself. But then you have to consider the scope. The Force doesn't operate on comfort, it operates on balance. And maybe Yoda, in his silence, saw a pattern we couldn't. a greater tide that demanded sacrifice. The Jedi weren't protectors anymore. They were warriors, generals, enforcers of a system already cracking. And Yoda, he may have seen that the only path forward was through ruin, through ashes, through a galaxy stripped of its illusions. He tells Luke, in his final days, that failure is the greatest teacher. And maybe that wasn't just a line for Luke. Maybe it was Yoda's reflection, his justification for letting the Order collapse, so something stronger could rise. Think about that for a moment. A master so in tune with the Force that he chooses to lose, not out of weakness, but out of devotion to a deeper truth. That death, sometimes, is the only way to cleanse the corruption. It's awe-inspiring, in a twisted, cosmic way, that he bore the weight of that choice, that he sat in that chair, day after day, knowing it all had to end, and still had the resolve to let it happen. Yoda doesn't die in combat. He dies in peace, on a quiet planet, in the presence of the boy who would restore what was lost. But in a different way, a better way, one not tied to politics or war. He trains Luke not to fight, but to understand, to feel, to let go. He emphasizes patience, connection, the inner workings of the Force rather than the outer symbols of Jedi tradition. And through that, Luke becomes something new. Maybe that was always the goal, not to preserve the Jedi, but to evolve them, to shed the arrogance, the rigidity, the blindness, and replace it with empathy, with instinct, with belief in people over systems. Yoda sees hope in Luke, not because he is powerful, but because he questions everything, because he chooses compassion over wrath, love over victory. That is the future Yoda bets everything on. So maybe he didn't give up. Maybe he passed the torch with purpose, knowing that sometimes letting go of what we built is the only way to build something better. There's a certain tragedy in wisdom, a burden no one asks for, and Yoda carried it alone, through centuries of peace, through decades of war, through the silent days when the Force stopped whispering and started screaming. He could have acted, could have screamed, could have torn the Council apart and defied the Senate, but he didn't. He chose stillness. He chose to watch, because some truths are too vast for action. And yet, that choice cost everything. Friends, students, a way of life shattered in a single breath. Maybe the Force demanded balance, but the toll was steep, and it echoes still in every corner of the galaxy. The legend of Yoda is not just of a wise teacher, but of a man who knew the ending and didn't run from it, who stared at the fire, and instead of trying to douse it, chose to walk through it. And maybe that's what makes him so powerful. Not his strength, not his knowledge, but his willingness to lose everything, so that someday someone else could choose differently. Thank you for watching the whole video. I make videos because of my love for Star Wars and Marvel. I've been asked countless times how I get my subtitles, and I generate them automatically with a tool I built. That same tool can be used here on my website. It's completely free and doesn't require signing up. My website contains the subtitle generator that is perfect for any video, blogging post, where you can sign up with your email and receive notifications for when I post, and also my 3 channels. Critical Analysis Hub focuses on Star Wars and Marvel movies. Critical Analysis Hub Plus looks at Star Wars and Marvel shows. And Critical Analysis Hub XP centers on video games, like The Last of Us series, Jedi Survivor, and GTA 5. Thank you for being a fan.